Tēnā tātou katoa. Kia ora koutou. My name is Kevin Haunui, co-chair of Community Governance Aotearoa. I'd like to open this second nationwide I Love Community Governance online event with a karakia before handing over to our fabulous Chief Executive, Rose. Nō reira, tēnā tātou katoa. He hōnore, he kororia ki te atua, he maunārongo ki te whenua, he whakaaro pai ki ngā tāngata katoa. Hanga e te atua he nā kauhau, ki roto ki tēnā o māta. Whakatoangia tō wairua tapu, hei āwhina, hei tohu i a mātou, hei ako hoki i ngā mahi mō tēnei rā āmene. Kia ora mai, Rose.
Kia ora, Martha, Kevin. Thank you for opening our I Love Community Governance event. Thank you to everyone who's joining us right now, and I'm glad that you've might have torn yourself away from the signing of our three-way government. So, and also another special day, it is Black Friday, so hopefully you're not out there shopping too, but great to have you with us, spending some time with us. So tēnā koutou katoa, tēnei te mihi nui, kia koutou. Welcome everyone to our second I Love Community Governance event for 2023. Ko Waio, ko Rose Hiha-Agnew. I'm the Chief Executive for Community Governance Aotearoa. So what is I Love Community Governance event all about? It's about valuing our not-for-profit sector and the great fabulous work that we do. Did you know that we have over 115,000 not-for-profits or non-government organisations in New Zealand? Just out of interest, in Australia, they have 600,000. We have, of the 115,000 not-for-profits here, we have 27,000 of these are charities. We have 230,000 of us are considered volunteers, even though most of our governance roles in not-for-profit feels like mahi. We bring in 20 billion in annual income that's generated by our New Zealand not-for-profits. And we have 50 billion in assets that are managed by the not-for-profit NGO sector. So if you hear that not-for-profits are second cousins to real governance or go cut your teeth in not-for-profits, you can tell them that it's simply not true. The numbers are substantive. We do great mahi. You can see all the big billions in assets that we manage, and our sector is vast. And we know, all the people here online today, we are community people and we know our kaupapa. So today is about celebrating the great, fantastic work that you do, but also recognising that we are facing a lot of challenges. And we're going to explore a little bit more of that today. So just as introducing our day in a background, if you would like, we'd love to see who's with us online today. You can put your name, where you're zooming in from, so whereabouts in Aotearoa you're from, and also your not-for-profit. We are recording this event and we share our events up online on our website, and post this event, we'll be sharing it out in a pānui that you'll get in your email. So see if anyone's going to get onto the chat first, but there, haven't seen any come up yet. No, it looks like everyone's busy, kind of writing away. Haven't seen anyone. No one wants to share where they're from? Yes, maybe I haven't seen it in the chat. Here we go. Oh. Here we go. I think that was a tech thing from my end. Let's see who we've got. Kia ora, Rick, Tauranga. New Zealand Red Cross, kia ora. Not too far from me, I'm based in Rotorua in the Bay of Plenty. Everyone thinks I'm in Wellington or Auckland. I'm not, I am based in the regions. We've got Lynette, kia ora Lynette, Hokianga, Whirinaki. Hokianga Housing Resilience Collective. Kia ora Zoe, Apahat. Talofa Lava from Pacifica Trust. I think Chris. We've got someone from Blenheim, Christchurch. someone might have their mute, and if you can, we do ask you to try and keep yourself on mute for this. It is a Zoom, so we can hear you, and if you come off when you're on a call, you might interrupt some of our fabulous guests that we've got with us later today. Lots of great people from around. Oh, we've got someone from Sydney, Australia. Kia ora, Heather. Lovely to have you with us. So many of you around Aotearoa, thank you so much for being with us here today. So in 2019, the National Strategy for Community Governance was developed, and we had 15 National Action Plan initiatives that were co-designed. These were co-designed to fill the gap and meet the needs of our not-for-profit sector. The second event that we've held is one of our key National Action Plan initiatives, and this event has been designed to celebrate, connect, and recognise the value that you play. We've had 2 events. This is our second one. We've had over 700 people from around New Zealand register for the event. So again, thank you for joining us and being with us today. We appreciate your time and your support. So just as we're coming to the end of the year, I have been reflecting on a few things that have affected our sector in particular, such as the cyclone this year. So in the areas such as Auckland, Coromandel, Gisborne and Hawke's Bay in particular. The roles that our governing chairs and our board members played, our community organisations, was huge. And these people, you are real champions. We responded to significant events. We helped get money out. We supported whānau. We went above and beyond. And I think this is a reality for many of us holding governance roles. Sometimes we hold both, so we're in governance and management roles. But we juggle our day jobs, we're attending meetings, hui, that kind of thing. But we're just there to make our communities better. So this is a big shout out to you, to celebrate you and all the work that you do. And I'd just like to acknowledge all the work that community governance has done. So we this year have delivered 2 I Love Community Governance events, over 700 people connected with us. We've funded 130 nationwide governance mentoring program. So those are board members through one-to-one governance, and some of our regions have been Whangarei, Gisborne, Invercargill, Wellington. So really right across New Zealand, Aotearoa. We have funded 35 chairs, so through our Tuakana Taina program. Through our program, so you're matched with experienced chairperson, fabulous program. We released a video toolkit this year with Te Tū Mō Paeroa. Those are all available on our website. We've held 6 board talks. Hopefully many of you have participated or come along to our board talk series. They're heaps of fun. We have fabulous guests, and since we launched this is our second year, we've had over 1,300 people sign up and attend our board talk series. We've delivered 6 good governance code workshops. We've had 75 participants over 3 cities for those. Again, the good governance code is available on our website. It's all free resources. We held a Wahine Māori Governance Day. We've sent out regular pānui. We've had a table talks, and we had a Trans-Tasman partnership talk with Institute of Community Directors in Australia. They're kind of like our sister organisation over there. And that was around Indigenous governance. And we're also looking to do one around climate change, so stay with us on that. And later this year, almost the end of the year, we launched our Good Governance Code board service. So that's around supporting not-for-profits with good governance expertise. So we've been busy, and we've grown our community by almost, I think we're like 30 people short, 1,000 people this year. So our community is growing. We love hearing from you. The team and I, we've got Joe Aaronhold and April McLennan. We get wonderful emails. So we are real people behind the scenes, not just on the Zoom hui. But yeah, thank you again for just reaching out and connecting with us. I just do want to do a bit of a shout out to all the other people who support us. So Havana Coffee Works, Trust Management, Grant Thornton, Community Trust. So there's 12 across New Zealand, Foundation North, Rata Foundation, Bay Trust, Waikato, Southland, right in your communities. You probably know many of them. Our DIA team, in particular, Andrew and Francesca, our advisory board members, Advocacy Answers, great boards, Appoint Better Boards, Mentoring Foundation New Zealand, Institute of Directors, Clare Foundation, and many other wonderful guests and supporters of community governance, such as Mele Wendt, Joe Cribb, Susan Doughty, CGA trustees, Rob Campbell, Judy Whiteman, Karen Narangi, and the list goes on. And again, I just want to say thanks to a fabulous team. This is one of our last online events for the year, and we've really been so excited to bring this to you today. We've responded from our first talk, so the concept and the style has been adapted because this is what you've shared with us. You wanted talks about co-governance, you wanted talks about rangatahi, and you didn't, from the feedback we got, you didn't really want really formal webinar format. So we've kind of shaken it up and really excited for today, so thank you. I think I've got through most of my housekeeping stuff, and if I haven't, the team will be messaging me saying I've missed something, so hopefully I haven't. But today is about celebrating what we do, recognising we are facing some challenges. So throughout today's session, we are going to ask you to answer some questions. We're going to poll you. It's not very hard. You just pick one answer, and we'll share the results back. But they're actually really valuable insights for us about what's going on and then how can we help you next year moving on and forward. So I think our first poll question is going to come up. Here we go, poll 1. So what do you think the biggest challenge facing our not-for-profit sector is moving into 2024? Pretty much know what our biggest challenge is from what I think, but what do you all think? So we have securing funding, attracting and retaining staff, access to resources, receiving donations, attracting and retaining volunteers, promoting the work of not-for-profit organisations, or keeping supporters engaged with your not-for-profit. So that is, what do you think the biggest challenges facing our sector? That's all of our community groups, grassroots organisations, charity, incorporated society, marae churches, that kind of thing. We'll give it a few minutes. And then April is going to publish the results. Okay, let's have a look at the results. So we have biggest challenge moving into 2024, 56% of us who are online at the moment, we've got about 86 people are securing funding and attracting and retaining staff, which is 16%, 17% of us said attracting and retaining volunteers. Yeah, this is definitely what I hear all the time. It is a tough funding environment. Things have been reined in. Yeah, it's very, very difficult. Attracting and retaining staff equally challenging, and volunteers, yeah, how do we keep people engaged with us? So we've definitely got some big challenges going ahead, and many of us, we know we do great stuff for our communities, but finding the money and sustaining it's proving very, very difficult. That was a hard poll. Yes, because there's probably, thank you from Hokianga, there's probably many of those things that we all wanted to say was a challenge, wasn't it? But it's given us a strong indication that we definitely know some of the key challenges, so thank you. Okay, so as part of changing up what we're doing around community governance, we're going to put everyone into breakout rooms. So this is not the chance to turn your screen off and run off. This is leave your video on. We're going to spend we're going to come back about 12:30 because we've got Mele Wendt, who's our keynote speaker, but we're going to go into breakout rooms. There's going to be about maybe 4, I think, in a room each. And we want to just, a prompt for you in the breakout room is, what is a challenge that your particular not-for-profit is facing? So just share a bit about what the challenges are. We'll come back, we'll see if we can maybe pop in the chat some of the things that you guys have shared if you like, but great chance to connect with others because you'll find that lots of us are in very similar situations. So, but also a great chance to meet lots of cool people. I'll let April is going to throw us into these rooms. You can join a room now, and then it'll give you a 2-minute countdown near the end when you'll get kicked out, and we'll come back. I think everyone's coming back out. Here we go. There we go. I'm really tempted to see, what did everyone think of that? Was it thumbs up? Should take a photo. Thumbs up, it was good. Great. Any feedback in the chats? I could ask you all, but I think there's about 80 people and it might get a bit crowded. Heaps thumbs up. Great. Did you meet some new friends? You can put in the chat. Did you meet some friends? Yep. Probably some people that might be able to help you out. It'll be, you know, it's like 2 degrees separation in New Zealand, so that kind of thing. Good to hear other board challenges. Yeah. Useful common issues. I think that's the thing, we find that we're all kind of suffering from very similar issues, aren't we? Awesome. All righty. Yeah. It's so interesting that we've got so many commonalities, you know, with getting good people on our board, keeping staff, because everyone needs money and it's hard to keep our staff and it's hard to give longer term permanent roles and commitments. We need some longer sustainability in our sector, don't we? These are some of the things that community governance are going to be championing next year, because we're out there to support our community. So that's why we want to hear from you what's happening. Funding drying up, that's going to be tough for all of us, isn't it? So connecting with one another and trying to find some ways that we can share resources, or we can connect a bit better around our operations and our functions. Great to meet in person sometime in the coming year. Yes, we would. We do want to do that. Okay, I can hear someone. I know who that is.
Sorry, it was me. My internet just went off, so I had to come back in. I'm here now. Yay.
Oh, yeah. I was just talking to everyone, but anyway.
Oh, good.
Well,
great
time. And a couple of us have our hands up.
Well, unfortunately, we've got to stick to timing with our chat, but we will be getting to this as we go. So, yeah, we need to keep to the schedule a little bit, but if you'd like to keep some comments coming, put them in the chat. Equally, you can email the team at info@communitygovernance.org.nz. So what we've got now is our keynote speaker, Mele Wendt. She's going to come up on screen because she's our keynote any second. And it is my pleasure to introduce Mele as our keynote speaker for our second I Love Community Governance event. Mele has been our previous chair for community governance, and she's a good friend. I would consider her a friend of mine. I don't know if she feels the same way, but I say that she would be. But she's very talented. She's very driven. She's a very good chair, and she's equally quite bossy, I think. But she, in a very, very lovely way. So she's a good woman. I'm really looking forward to hearing a bit more of your story, Mele, about what shapes you, what's created Mele Wendt. Thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing a bit more about you and in Pacifica governance, what we can learn. So if you've got any questions, we're probably going to wrap closer to 10 to 1, I think. So we've got some time to take some Q&A, put them in the chat, and I'll see if I can get them through to Mele. Over to you.
Tēnā koutou katoa, talawhalawa, mahalo elelei, kia ora na, bula vinaka, and warm greetings to you all. Today, I'll tell you a little bit about my growing up in Samoa and Fiji, and reflect on how this has grounded and impacted my governance practice. I'll also share some aspects of different Pacific governance systems, values, and practices. And I'll share a little bit about some of the things that are changing in governance and how we could and should be adapting it. So I was born in Apia, Western Samoa, to a Samoan father, Albert, and a Pālangi mother, Jenny. Our parents met in Wellington, got married, and went back to Samoa to live, where my sister, me, and brother were born in relatively quick succession. I spent my first 6 years in Samoa, mostly on the Samoa College campus, where my father was the school principal. From 6 to 8 years of age, I lived in Suva, Fiji, because Dad got a job at the University of the South Pacific. We moved back to Samoa, where I finished primary school, then intermediate school, and then during fourth form at Samoa College, Dad got a professorship at the university in Fiji, so we moved back to Fiji, where I finished high school and then came to live here in New Zealand when I was 18 years of age to attend Victoria University. And I've been here in Wellington ever since. I reflect back on my whole childhood very fondly. I loved growing up in the family, cities, and countries I lived in. There were aspects of my upbringing which influenced who I became in adulthood and who I am today. We were brought up to have a clear sense of identity. Being Afakasi or half-caste, Samoan and Pālangi, my parents deliberately raised us with a strong Samoan identity to ensure that we felt confident about our heritage, especially when our identity was questioned, which it often was. Part of the Samoan culture was learning about and living the core values that are central to the Whakasamoa or Samoan way of life. The core value of alofa, which translates to love, but has a much broader, deeper meaning and includes kindness, compassion, generosity, and reciprocity. In my life, alofa was seen in many different ways, whether it was sharing food, money, or whatever with those less fortunate, looking after others, and always looking out for others' needs as well as your own. Because the reality was and is, the Whakasamoa is very much about the collective. We don't operate as individuals or as nuclear families. We operate in extended families, villages, districts, and very much part of a community. The second value to highlight is wha'aloalo, or respect, reverence, being courteous, polite, and humble. Two core rules that got drummed into me from a young age were respect your elders and don't answer back, which I do admit I found challenging sometimes, because on the flip side of that, my siblings and I were instilled with a strong sense of equity and social justice and doing what is right, to think critically, question things, and speak for ourselves. So at times it was challenging to show wha'aloalo or respect when you wanted to speak up about an injustice or to defend yourself. Also, we had a very feminist upbringing. My parents treated us the same regardless of our gender. And my sister and I were never to let being girls be a barrier for choice and achievement. The third and final value I'll talk about is tautua or service. The cultural tradition of serving the family or ainga, and ali'i and matai or chiefs, serving the church, the village, district, and country, or serving a greater cause. Tautua can mean monetary and material contributions, but more often it means labor, actually helping. So all around me growing up, I saw service in action. My grandfather was the patriarch and matai in our lives, or chief, who diligently served his family, villages, church, and community. So did my parents and many others who were working hard to build up their families and villages to provide a better environment for everyone and for the future. At the very heart of our culture is putting other people first and serving the collective. It's not about me, it's always about we. Servant leadership was and is the modus operandi of life and leadership. The central model promoting collectivism in Samoa and for all Samoans is our whakamatai or matai system, which is a collectivist system of governance and central to the organization of Samoan society. Inherent in the matai system is the welfare and protection of the extended family. In Samoa, there are families, villages, and districts, and matai are leaders of those divisions. There are different types of matai who have different ranks and different responsibilities. Each council, each village has a council made up of matai and is the authority of every village in Samoa. Much of the country's civil and criminal matters are dealt with by the 360 village councils. Adjacent to this is the formal legal system and the government. Villages also have religious leaders, the village mayor, and groups based on gender, age, and marital status, such as the Women's Committee, Awaluma for unmarried women, and Aumanga for untitled men. Depending on who you are within this cultural system, there are specific roles, tasks, and responsibilities which everyone knows and carries out, and there are accountabilities. Elders also play a major role in every family and village, and age can sometimes outrank formal leadership positions. Of course, none of this is written down, and you learn through watching, listening, and doing, and through making mistakes. I'll come back to the matai system shortly, but I want to just reflect briefly on my young years spent in Fiji. I absolutely loved it there, and I'm still closely connected with classmates who I went through school with. I found the cultural environment amongst Fijians very similar to Samoan culture, with family, village, and community of utmost importance, and the same values being displayed, and the importance of cultural traditions and customs. Because Fiji also had half its population who were of Indian ethnicity, and there were populations of Europeans and part Europeans or Kailoma, Chinese, and others, it was a very multicultural society with different languages, cultures, and religions. For a kid, I found that really interesting and learned to navigate interacting with lots of different kinds of people. I think this provided really good grounding to develop my cultural intelligence, CQ. Cultural intelligence is the ability to work effectively in cultural diversity. My growing up in Samoa and Fiji provided me with a rich cultural tapestry and provided the core values, beliefs, and experiences that formed the basis of who I am and that have held me in good stead, especially in my governance work. I got into formal governance at the age of 29 because of an opportunity offered to me at my workplace. I started working at Victoria University and was asked to be the university staff representative on the board of Victoria House, the hall of residence that I had stayed in as a student 10 years earlier. 10 years later, at age 39, I got asked by VSA, Volunteer Services Abroad, to serve on their council, which I did for 2 years, and that led on to other board roles. I really enjoyed the mix of working full-time and doing 1 or 2 boards on the side. That continued, and along the way, I undertook formal governance training. 8 years ago, I resigned from my full-time job running the Fulbright Commission and decided to focus more on governance and working for myself as a consultant and facilitator. Opportunities arose a few years ago to do some governance facilitation. In 2020, someone I knew approached me to provide them with some governance training. They wanted to learn everything one usually learns on an Institute of Directors course, but from someone they knew, and to do it one-on-one. In thinking about the content of that training, I started thinking about governance in my own culture and how Samoan society is governed. There's the formal government, modelled on the Westminster system of governance because we were colonised. But then I thought about governance in our society, and of course the matai system came to the fore. I had never thought about it being a system of governance in the same vein as the Palangi or Western system of governance. It also hit me that we've been doing governance in Samoa for a very long time. 3,000 years since our forebears first settled there and developed as a people, and we've been developing and practicing our collectivist system of governance since. In analysing the key aspects of the matai system and looking at all the language used, the different titles, hierarchies and relationships, roles and responsibilities. Oh, sorry, I just lost myself. I realised how complex and sophisticated the matai system is. And as Samoans have migrated to many parts of the world to live, including here in Aotearoa, we've taken our Samoa and Matai system with us. The Samoan diaspora continue to espouse the core values, beliefs, and customs of the homeland wherever they live around the world. All these realizations were quite empowering and uplifting for me. So I incorporated these reflections into the training as a way to highlight that we as Samoans already know something about governance because it's been a part of our culture and way of life for a very long time, and it still is. The reaction and feedback I got was really positive, and my discussions and thoughts on this topic continued. A few months later, friend Karen Rangi and I decided to work together to offer governance training aimed specifically at Pacific people. In early 2021, we started developing our course, and I shared about the experience of incorporating the Samoan governance content. Karen shared some of the things she'd been using when facilitating with Pacific audiences, especially in her homeland of the Cook Islands. Together, we developed a new program that incorporated some of these elements. In our Good Governance with a Pacific Lens course, we and participants share our cultural experiences of governance and collectively review and discuss Western governance using Pacific perspectives, examples, and contexts. We ran our first course in March 2021, so I've been doing it for nearly 3 years now, and we've delivered about 25 courses involving about 500 Pacific people and some non-Pacific people who wanted to join in all around the country. It's been an absolute privilege to hear about so many different Pacific cultures and governance systems and practices. If I thought that Samoa had a complex cultural governance environment, I think both Tonga and Fiji are on another level. Tonga is a constitutional monarchy, making it unique in the Pacific. Its monarchy is over 1,000 years old, and its constitution dates back to 1875. The formal government, the Legislative Assembly, operates alongside the Tongan way of life, anga whakatonga, which provides a social structure which is highly stratified and status conscious. Respect, whakaapa-apa, is a core value. Gender differences and family structure are important elements, with men and women expected to fulfill designated roles and behaviours. Gender is the primary determinant of one's position in the social and family hierarchy in Tonga. The second determinant of hierarchy is age. In addition, there is a structured class system based on the prestige of one's family. Social status is the position one inherits from the father, and it governs the relationships within the kin group, while societal rank is the position one inherits from the mother, and it governs relationships across the broader society. Like Samoans, the Tongan diaspora the world over continue to perpetuate the anga whakatonga. Fiji was settled 3,500 years ago, and it too has an indigenous governance system that's evolved since then. It's a highly complex and hierarchical system with the family unit or toka at the centre. Several family units form a clan. Several clans make up a large tribe, and several tribes make up a confederation. And all of these are associated with particular territories or areas of land. There are chiefs who are heads of families and a hierarchy of chiefs presiding over villages, clans, and tribes, and having different roles and responsibilities and accountabilities. Within villages, there are also other people playing different leadership roles. Gender, age, lineage, and skill determine those roles. Again, society is very communal, with great importance placed on the collective. Other Pacific countries and cultures have different governance systems, and there are many differences and variations. But over the course of the 3 years of hearing about different environments, we've found some strong common characteristics. In the majority of Pacific cultures and societies, 1, we operate in the best interests of the collective and for the greater good. 2, there are collective responsibilities and collective decision-making. 3, we understand and are used to operating in hierarchies, distinct roles and responsibilities, and having accountabilities. 4, conduct is based on guiding values and principles like alofa, service, and respect. 5, developing and nurturing relationships is central to ensuring the success of our cultures and governance. And 6, we're resilient and good problem solvers. And when we think about some of the core elements essential to the Western system of governance, guess what? Those are the things I've just outlined. People need to operate in the best interests of the collective and for the greater good. They have to be good with collective decision-making and understand hierarchies, etc., and operate with really good values and principles. So I say that Pacific or mana moana governors have innate strengths and desirable qualities, skills, and practices that we bring to the Western world of governance. Carlo Mila, the writer and the creator of the Mana Moana Experience Leadership Program, writes that mana moana is the power, energy, and vitality of the indigenous ways of knowing and being belonging to the moana. I think that Western governance can learn a lot from indigenous systems of governance, including those from the moana, and our boardrooms would benefit from having more ethnic and cultural diversity in them and being open to doing things in new and different ways. Which leads to the last part of my talk on how I think we can be decolonizing our governance to adapt to the society we live in today and where we live in the world. Here in Aotearoa, formal boards have been around in New Zealand since the late 1800s, and the Institute of Directors was founded in 1903. Of course, the British governance system was transported here and formed the basis of our government and governance then and right up until now. We have many governance conventions and practices in place that have been in place for over 120 years. The basis for meeting conventions comes from 147 years ago, when US Army officer Henry Robert wrote a book setting out standards for meetings to help guide organizations in their operations of governance. The book became very influential and became known as Robert's Rules of Order. And those rules seeped into governance approaches throughout English-speaking countries, including here. Among the manual's hundreds of pages are dictates for the chair's role, points of order, and how to move and second motions. Karen and I in our governance training have always advocated that unless your governance rules dictate that you must move and second motions or decisions, you don't need to. The main reason being that when our decision-making is based on consensus, it should not matter who specifically moved the motion and who seconded it, because the decision was made by everyone, by the collective. Many boardrooms have dropped this practice, but there are still many organizations who continue it. Earlier this year, when I suggested one of my boards change this practice, the chair asked if I could provide external references about it. I couldn't find any specific to New Zealand, so I asked my lawyer friend, Stephen Moe, if he would help and invited Karen to be part of the article that we collectively wrote, which the Institute of Directors published in July. In it, we outlined the fact that after scouring legislation, we found nothing mandating the practice of moving and seconding. We acknowledge that for some councils and other statutory bodies, this may be required and stipulated in standing orders, but mostly it is tradition or convention. We also argued that the moving and seconding approach has an individualistic emphasis, which aligns with the Western concept, and dropping the approach would align more with collective decision-making practices of Māori and Pacific cultures, where it's about the whole group and its decisions made together. In September, I facilitated a panel at Philanthropy New Zealand conference entitled Governing for a Unique Aotearoa in 2023 and Beyond, with Kate Frickberg, Kate Cherrington, and Guy Beatson from IOD. The panelists shared their ideas and experiences of how their governance and boardrooms have changed and are changing. Kate Cherrington talked about fully embracing a uniquely Aotearoa governance style and how some of her boards were now operating using a system built on consensus and a te ao Māori way of thinking, and are on a journey to unpack conventional structures. Kate Frickberg talked about some of their board practices being quite different to the typical New Zealand boardroom, having a co-governance structure with 2 Māori trustees and 2 Pākehā, having board meetings at someone's home after a meal, starting and ending with Karakia, and using consensus decision-making as some examples. Guy Beatson from IOD emphasised that while we have
Oh, I think she's lost her internet.
Yeah.
It's just frozen. Bugger.
We'll just give her a minute or two and see if she can reconnect. I think she was just getting near the wrap too. That hasn't happened before, folks, so bear with us with the tech. But she's actually touched on a few things that are coming up, which is we've got our panel talk coming up about co-governance and co-governance models. So that's going to be something around that collective decision making and different ways of operating. I see there were a few questions for her, which is, what did we have? We had a couple that had come in. One was a view on boards who want to appoint a Pacifica member to their board, but still work in a very colonial model. Like, how do you incorporate that? And
I'm back. Sorry, my internet cut out. Anyway, sorry, I didn't end properly, but anyway, that was the end of my spiel anyway.
I'm just going to bring you up. So I was just saying that hasn't happened before. So that's lucky you, Mele. But we also had a question that had come in around, so I was just looking for it again. Just basically around what's your view on boards who want to appoint a Pacifica member to their board, but still work in a very colonial model. So we often hear this, you want a Māori rep, you want ethnic, you would like this and this to fulfill a need. But is the organisation actually set up? Because one person can't, what's your views? If you just ask, trying to get one person on, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think you need to make sure that the environment in which that person is going into that is conducive and welcoming, and is going to be really welcoming of their diversity of thought. And so I think do the homework first yourselves to make sure that you are a welcoming, a prepared environment, a prepared board that's going to really genuinely embrace the diversity, and make sure also, and there are other things that you can do. You can have a little buddy system where a more experienced board member might be the person's sort of support on the side, as they journey. A really good induction process, I think, is really important. Getting to know each other on a personal level, finding out more about but always about each other and your different backgrounds and ethnicities and things like that. So I think that's quite a few things that you can do. But it can be a very lonely place if you're the only Pacific person on a board and it's not a welcoming or really inclusive environment, and you're not really being, your contributions are not really being genuinely valued.
Yeah, and I think Carolyn's message that, her friend doesn't want to be, it's just not a tick box. We have to move beyond that. We know better, so we have to do better. And again, it is a simple thing. Just get to know one another, get to know each other's backgrounds, hearing about your background. And you look pretty stylish, I must say, Mele, some of those photos. Looking pretty neat. So it does form your view, doesn't it? So my takeaways from you is a lot of values embedded from your whānau, so real strength and accountability, and that does help your decision making and how you govern, and also interesting around the systems and the hierarchical, because we have that ourselves in Te Ao Māori, so that everyone knows how it is. It might not be spoken. So, and was it CQ, so your cultural
cultural intelligence.
Yeah, that sounds, that was resonating, I think, quite a bit with people too.
Yeah. So I think in order to be a really effective leader and to have effective leadership and good governance, great governance practice, you need IQ, EQ, and CQ. You need to have some intelligence. You need to have emotional intelligence, and you need cultural intelligence. And I think without cultural intelligence, you're never really going to be as effective as you could be.
Yes, it definitely brings a lot. And in our space, when we're working in communities, as we know, we do have quite a diverse makeup as well. But these are actually, this is why you've been such a great keynote speaker for us, because some of the things that you've said, they're actually going to flow into some of the other panel talks that we're going to talk about today. So from all of us, homai te paki for Mele. So that's a big round of applause. We need some kind of audio for that, but thank you so much.
Lava, tēnā koutou katoa, tēnā tātou katoa.
Thank you, Mele. So we are going to ask you our second poll question. It's going to come up right now, and we're going to move into very shortly our first panel session. So poll 2, I'm going to leave it up a little bit longer, make sure that everyone has their chance to have a say in this, but what is your primary role within your not-for-profit? So do you have 2 roles, dual role, governance and operations? Are you a board chair? Are you a co-chair? Deputy chair? Are you a deputy chair that now shares it half term, like the government that's been announced today? Trustee, board member, board secretary, governance advisor, specialist, CE or operations? You just want to check us out and see what's going on. Yes, okay. Hot topic at the moment, so we'll be getting into a couple of these things, and these are why this is from our first event that we held, our first I Love Community Governance. The co-governance models, that kind of thing was really hot topic, so we're going to get into that shortly. April is going to, when she thinks enough of us have answered the poll, she'll share the results with us. Okay, we've got a range here because I think the highest I can see is trustee board member at 24%. We've got dual roles, 22%. That's very common in our sector. We hold both. So we're doing the ops and we're doing our governing. Our next one is governance advisor, facilitators around 10%, 12% just have general interest. That's great. And we've got some operations, so a real mix there. So thank you again for completing the poll. And thank you to Mele for her keynotes. Open address, that was fabulous. You got someone who wants to sign up. Okay, so here we have it. This is our first panel session. We have relatively about 20 or so minutes, I think, for this talk. So we're going to get into it. And I think we're going to get some great questions coming through because, like people have said, there's some things happening with the recent government announcements, things like that. Okay, so I'm just going to bring up, everyone see our panelists. So with us today, we have Rāwiri Bhana, Sarah Morris, and Jewelz. Can everyone see our panelists? I think we're waiting on one more. Is that correct, April? We're just waiting on Jewelz. Just give us a minute. Hey, Sarah, where's your co-chair?
I'm literally just messaging. Her internet has just dropped out, but she's trying to get back.
No.
I think she's in her car. She's trying.
Not everyone does get very good rural service, do they? So Jewelz might be with us shortly.
I wonder if
Yeah.
I'm
back on.
She's back.
Yeah,
I'm back.
Okay, just looking through the comments at the moment. So got some great people sharing some great resources in the chat. So thank you so much for that. Okay, so what we like to do in our community governance when we have these kind of talks, we like to keep it to the point. We're going to share your bios and things in the chat so people can check you guys out. But I was thinking, just to get to know our panel, I've got to ask you something, get to know you guys. So what was the best Christmas present you ever got as a kid? And because I don't even know this question's coming, who are we going to start with? What's the best Christmas present that you ever got? What do you think it was?
This one year for Christmas, I stayed at my grandparents' house because I think my mum, kia ora, ko Jewelz Petley tōku ingoa. He rino ahau te rawa me Ngāti Kuri, my whakapapa up north. I'm here in Tamaki Makaurau, West Auckland. I stayed at my grandparents' house because I think my mum was out partying on Christmas Eve, which happens when you're a single mother. And I woke up in the morning and there was a basketball under the tree, and all I wanted was a basketball. Honestly, thought that my life was the best life, and all I did was play with that basketball for like weeks and weeks and months and months. I still love basketball to this day.
Nice, thank you, Jewelz. Sarah, what was your
Beautiful story, Jewelz. I don't know what I got for Christmas, but kia ora koutou, ko Sarah Morris tōku ingoa. What popped into my head was a fish tank, but I think I actually got it for my birthday. I really wanted a pet, and my parents were not pet-loving people, and I was devastated about that. And so what I got as a gift, which I loved, was a fish tank with fish in it, which is not a dog, but made me very happy, and it was a happy childhood memory. So that's me.
Nice. Tēnā koe Rāwiri. Rāwiri looks a bit, I don't think he knows what he got.
This is probably the hardest question ever, Rose. I was going to do that. Oh, man. Yeah. After getting dragged to midnight mass with my papa, because he was Roman Catholic and my kuia was Anglican, there was a lot of time spent at church on Christmas, and that's who he's raised me. So, kia ora koutou, ko Rāwiri Bhana tōku ingoa, he hurio o Te Arawa Waka. It wasn't on Christmas Day, but it wasn't too far off. So I'm going to say my daughter. That's a really easy cop-out one is, having, and she's my oldest, she's my Martha Iosia. So that was a big present for my mother as well, because she never wanted 3 sons. She always wanted a girl and never got it. So I gave my mother her probably best Christmas present as well.
Actually, I'm not too far off there. I have a Boxing Day baby. So yeah, just past Christmas, thank goodness. And Rick, nicely, he said that he got a Lego Night Castle, so that's pretty flash. Lucky you, Rick. Okay, so we have Sarah and Jewelz are co-chairs, so I believe you have a co-governance model in place. We're going to learn a little bit about why you introduced that kind of co-governance model. And Rāwiri Bhana, who's trustee in our Te Ao Māori Tangata Whenua, for community governance. So, and we have a 2-house model as well. Something that I would say Rāwiri and myself quite experienced with. We've led lots of frameworks and developed stuff around co-governance, things like that. So yeah, between ourselves, we thought, because co-governance is a hot topic, it's been a hot topic for quite some time. There's been some comments already around the government probably trying to oust this out. We seem to have adopted this model in our not-for-profit sector. So really keen to start off with, why co-governance? Why did you guys choose this model? This is to Sarah and Jewelz.
You want me to start, Jewelz? Kia ora, Rose. I'm the Tangata Tiriti co-chair of Huie Community Aotearoa, and Huie started in 2014, so quite, I think we're coming up to our 10-year anniversary next year. And my understanding, the sort of whakapapa of the co-governance model goes back quite a ways to, so the model that we have is a Te Tiriti relationship framework model, and that was sort of designed by a number of Māori scholars, including a couple of people who were involved with the board way back when, at the start of Huye. So the model has been around for a long time. And I think it has been a two-house model. We've been talking recently about whether it's one house with different rooms, where that fits with Pacifica and so on. But it is, we do have 8 members, 4 tangata whenua and 4 tangata tiriti. Jewelz being the tangata whenua co-chair. So it's been around for a long time, and Te Tiriti was always at the centre of the kind of the birthing of Huye, which was a merger of 2 other different organisations. So it has a long whakapapa. We still talk though, even though we have this model, and we have some tikanga which comes from our statement of intent around how we roll together as a team and as 2 separate caucus. We make decisions collectively together as a board, but when we need to, or when people want to, or we think it's a good idea to, we caucus separately as well. So that's, in a nutshell, the way that it works for us. I don't know if you want to add in anything there, Jewelz, but that's pretty much the model and where it came from.
No, I've got nothing more to add. But I can talk to why co-governance. So for me, I wanted to be part of a co-governance board because I started hearing about, the anti-co-governance koro that was happening around the motu. And I was like, why are people talking about this thing, and why do people not like it? And so I thought, well, how better to learn about it than to go and do it? And it just so happened that I had the opportunity to, because all I wanted was to be on the board, just to understand. I didn't actually intend to be the co-chair at all. It kind of just happens when you end up on a board and people kind of put their hands up and sometimes they don't. And then here we are. Just so happens that I turned out to be the tangata whenua co-chair of Huye, which has been a very awesome learning opportunity, and for us to really challenge the way in which we think and do things.
Yeah, I think co-governance, the narrative has been around government, local council appointments like mana whenua, Māori appointed roles in local council. There's been lots of discussions maybe in that government realm. In our not-for-profit sector, do you think that some of us do hold quite specific legal responsibilities? Like in health, we have lots of contracts that specify our responsibilities to the treaty and what that means. But in the sense of some of the models, do you think it's more around making sure that we've got really good diversity and we have seats at the table, that kind of thing? What's your kind of thoughts when it applies to a not-for-profit community, and why do you think co-governance, that kind of two-house model, why do you think that works? But Rāwiri, have you got some thoughts?
Oh no, I was waiting to listen to hear what Jewelz said. It looked like she had it on the tip of her tongue.
One thing you'll learn, Rāwiri, is that I've always got something to say, whether or not it's any good. It's, whether or not it's worth anything, nobody knows. Sometimes I'll just say it and we'll see what happens. I also apologise. I'm in the car, for anyone who hasn't realised, and that's why I have my glasses on, because I can't actually see very well. So I think for our local community organisations and a co-governance model, governance models, we try and, in the community sector, we want to ensure that we represent the voice of the people. And what quite often happens is we're like, oh, we will appoint, a Māori seat or a Pacifica seat or a blah, blah seat. And what happens is it becomes quite unsafe for whatever ethnic minority that is. And if we're trying to, that can be unsafe because it's potentially not culturally, it's not this, everyone's not on the same cultural page. So you're working through a Western lens on a Western governance model, and people have different cultural values, and they aren't necessarily recognised or understood if there's just one lone person who holds those, and then they're trying to share that into a space that doesn't necessarily understand. So I'm not even sure if I'm answering this question, actually. So for me, for the co-governance, having a 50-50 split provides a really safe space for myself and my tangata whenua board members to be able to come together and to know and understand that we have an immediate understanding and shared value system through a cultural lens. And it would be similar for other ethnic minorities, I would assume. And so I think there's absolutely value in trying to enable diverse representation, but you need to be aware of, and I think this is what Mele was talking to before, you need to be aware of how that you're creating that to ensure that you're creating a safe space of cultural understanding, whilst also trying to govern in what is very much a Western world.
Yeah, no, I'll just jump into Rose and Sarah and Jewelz both said some really key words, and I think lots of people who may have joined on for this part of the cope-up about co-governance, it was very topical, obviously with 1/3 of our current governing partnership in Parliament with ACT and their aversion to the word of co-anything, whether it be governance, management, design. But I think Sarah hit it on the head for me, and we're not going to give you the answers. I was just going to go, because there is no one template you can use on co-governance. The first thing for those who are listening and your board may be thinking about it is you need to answer the why. You sort of talked about it, Rose, in terms of some of our not-for-profit boards, legislatively, co-governance makes sense. The environment stuff, if you're working in the RMA space, Article 2 of the treaty's written through lots of the tile stuff there. Some of our boards, and you know that, Rose, we've been approached by some of our ethnic non-Māori boards throughout the country who wanted to do a co-governance model, and it was always, what is your why though? What is, and Sarah also said it, intent and purpose. And I think those are really, really important to ask yourself and your board before you go down the co-governance route too, because I've been on asked around co-governance on boards, and then when we've dug deeper, it's because they wanted someone to do the karakia, or they wanted somebody to be the magic signatory who signs off for all of Māori and iwidom, and you'll find, and I'm going to assume, Jewelz, is very similar to me, when people say, Rā, do you speak on behalf of all of iwi and all of Māori? I'm going to go, man, I barely speak on behalf of my whānau. My mother would take me out if I even assume some of those ones there. So I think finding out the why you want to go there, and then really being purposeful in your intent and purpose, and it has to be a two-way street. I was just going to go, having a co-governance board because you want to tick a box, or it's going to look good on a funding submission, or you want somebody to do a karakia, or to put your tangas up on the wall in that strategic plan. Those are some really big questions you need to ask yourself, because if your board decides and the answer is yes when you've done the why, it's a brave step to go in there, because you're going to have people challenge you. You're going to have people saying, oh, you're doing that wrong. You're going to have people say, why is Jewelz on that board? Why is Rā on that board? They don't represent, they're not mana whenua, or they're from the wrong iwi, or who gave them the mandate to speak there. So it is a very complex one, Rose, and this cope-up here is, we're going to probably throw up more questions than answers, but I think having a conversation about it is a great place to start.
Yeah, and that's why we've got this conversation here. So we're talking about co-governance and leadership models, but it's because we're not shying away from this. It is sitting there, and especially this year, it has been like, what does it mean? How is it applied? How do we do it? How's it going to work? Is it the right model? Are we going to open up a whole other range of difficult things by implementing this? So I think there was an earlier question though from Ina. So she said something about the new coalition government has looked at removing remove co-governance from the delivery and public service. I think this is what I want to just be a little bit clear about is in the not-for-profit sector. I think it goes back to your why, like what's your intent? What are you serving? What's the organization's purpose? If you are serving, like say this is another example too, but like if you're doing housing and it's for Māori communities or something, but you don't have that representation, like you've got to get it, you've got to find it. You've got to think about your why. Does it equal a co-governance model? Not necessarily. So I think it is around your why, your intent, your direction, what you're trying to achieve. Another one is I was asked if from a chair, is it good to implement a co-chair arrangement? When I kind of dug down into it, it was because this person didn't have a lot of time. So they thought that bringing in another co-chair was going to kind of fix the problem. But the reality is actually maybe you need to step aside, because if you don't have the time commitment, the way at the table, you don't just create a co-chair model to alleviate pressures. So that's not the right approach. So I just want to be clear, if people are saying they want co-chairs, co-governance, what is it about? So yeah, definitely invest that time at the start. I'm just going to check some of these questions.
Can I just jump in there, Rose, with the, I think just what you've said as well, like the difference between co-sharing or co-managing and co-governance or te tiriti models, because I think you've touched on something there, like they're quite fundamentally different ideas. Yeah, they come from a different place.
Yeah, so I think it's great for us to explore this, because if anyone's online now, chuck some questions in the chat, because we'll put it to our guests online. I think it is, just what Ra's saying, what we were saying, it's intent and purpose. So where you're heading and bringing in inclusive decision making, that's at the crux of it, making sure that you've got grounded decision making behind what you're going to do, and it doesn't become a tick box exercise, which we all know happens. Let's move a little bit into the challenges that you've faced. Let's move a little bit into practicality. How do you both manage decision making? How do you manage if you both have a conflict? If one's doing a lot more than the other, is that cool? Does that ruffle a bit of feathers? I've been a co-chair before. I really loved it. So I've had a really positive experience of being co-chair. Some might not, but yeah. How do you think about that? Do you make how do you going to work on these kind of issues if it arises? How do we practically get to this place?
I just generally say to Sarah, 1 ounce, and then I fly down to Blacktown, and for the Māoris in the room, 1 ounce just means we go for a fight outside. Obviously, that's not what we do. But I hate being serious, so just so everyone knows. So Sarah and
that's what I do to Rawiri. I'm like, just stop it, would you?
We have, if I can speak first, Sarah, and then you can speak in Rawiri. I think this is the most rewarding governance experience I've ever had. So I don't know if anyone knows about Sarah and I. We spent the last 2022 together doing our Masters in Social Change Leadership together. And it just so happened that we ended up by being co-chairs on a board together. And so we already had an existing relationship. It wasn't a super strong relationship, but we had a relationship and enough understanding of and respect to be able to work together and then work through challenges. And like I talked to Sarah, so going back to your point before, Rose, about, if I get a co-chair, does it mean less work? I talk to Sarah at least once a day about hui e mahi, not about, we talk about the kids and so on and so forth, because you want also creating a relationship with this person. But we have to, we create a relationship, and we create space for each other to have differing opinions, and then we work through the whys and the pros and cons. And I think Sarah's taught me to be patient and to listen. And it's not easy. It does take time, but I think we've never really had we've never had any bust-ups, but we definitely disagree on things.
No juicy goss coming out of there, but I like what Kay's saying in the chat too. So she's actually saying about the treaty, and regardless of government's views or laws, it's our responsibility to continue for all of us. So continue on the kaupapa of what that means for us and how we apply it. So that's where co-governance models have come about. So sharing equally with one another. That doesn't sound too threatening, unless you disagree, Rāwiri, but no?
No. I'm just thinking, and I think it's that complexity of the question, Rose, too, because if you can answer the why, and we're all going to have a different answer on the why, it's the what as well. And if you've decided through the why we don't need co-governance, that doesn't mean you shouldn't have a great relationship with your mana whenua, your local iwi, your local hapu, depending on what your trust does, what your non-for-profit does. If you're just locally based in a little town, or you serve your region or your nationwide trust, I think that's why there is no simple answer on what we do. And I know 100% and hand on heart will agree with why we went down our model with community governance Aotearoa, because it made sense for us that we don't want to just walk the walk. We want to talk, not just talk the talk, we wanted to walk it as well, and be an exemplar for this is one model of co-governance. But again, it's not a one size fits all, and that's like I was going to say, whether it's co-governance, you want nothing we do preclude yourself from having a great relationship with your local iwi, your local hapu, your local marae. And even that, dropping down from that is the who's question too, because again, when I made the little joke about why is Jewelz and Rara on this, again, it's having the right person, because having the wrong person there is just as detrimental to a good model. You can have the greatest co-governance model in the world, and if you have the wrong people there, it's going to be a disaster as well. So like obviously Jewelz and Sarah got a great relationship and can have their one else, but you need to realise too with, and I only ever speak on the tangata whenua side there in this stuff, is that we won't always agree, and we will sometimes just be at an impasse, but at least it's black and white and there's no grey. So it's a conversation we're having today. There will be, as I said, more answers than questions.
Yeah, and I think it's people often ask me what is governance about, and I'm like, it's about people. Like governance touches on every aspect of relationships, how we connect with one another on the board, stakeholders, community, like it's the whole thing. It's all about relationships, and we kind of live and fall on it, so we have to invest heavily in that, in our time and building our strengthening our relationships. Okay, I was just thinking we are getting close to kind of wrapping up. Just before we do that though, what about working with your management team? So there, a couple of people, there are some options for like co-CEs. Is that something that you guys have explored, Sarah and Jewelz, or there's, co-chair, co-CEs? Is that, people are hearing more about this?
Yeah, we're exploring it. We're exploring it at the moment, and it's been a conversation that we've been having about what that could possibly look like for Huia. I think, like kind of Jewelz was saying, there's no rule book for the way that you do co-governance. And I think that's probably the same for co-leadership as well. I think what works also between Jewelz and I, like it is a relationship of trust and reciprocity, which is like the foundation for it. But also we have very complementary skills. So we're quite different people, but we share a similar vision. So we might have different ways of getting to a place. And I think that's what is beautiful about it. And it's also beautiful about our team. We've got a very diverse team in lots of different ways across both houses, if you like. And so we kind of pull on each other's strengths and call each other out when we need to. So for me, the co-leadership discussion is kind of another way for Huia, like the Titiriti model started at governance. How can we operationalize that? So we've got social procurement policy, for example, which prioritises services from Māori providers. There's lots of like little different tweaks that you can make, but I think the future is co-leadership, and it's just finding the right path towards that and finding the right people who will bring complementary skills together in a way that works for the service to community, which is what we do. Yeah. It's my reckons.
Any last thoughts on co-governance leadership models from you guys? Just before we're just about to wrap.
If I can just finish on one thing, sometimes you just have to give it a jam. It's my number one go-to. Just go in with intent, the same intent, like the same outcome or what you're trying to achieve. You just have to give it a jam, give it a go. Some things aren't going to work, and you can learn from those. Is that saying failing forward or failing to learn, all those other positive things you can say. But I think there's a lot of hesitation from people because they don't know what to do or how to do it. There's a really good theory out there, but you just have to give it a jam.
Yeah, we'll put that in the chat. Jewel's quote is, was it give it a jam? Yeah, and I also think though, if you are going to go down this road and implement it, like start from that, do the right thing, follow your why. Why do you want to do it? What's the benefit of it? Because at the end of the day, we're there to serve our community. So what is the benefit? Yeah, and review it. Just check in and make sure it's working, because there's nothing worse than just sitting on something and you haven't actually gone back and said, is this working for your board, your management team, your community? Just have a check in. Okay, well, that was a great conversation. I'm glad that we've got into co-governance and leadership models, and it needs to have two co-chairs. So we might, hopefully we'll hear back from them maybe next year or something and see if they're still friends, still mates. And thanks to Rāwiri as well. If anyone's got any questions about it, our community governance team are happy to help give some insights into how it works and that kind of thing as well. Right, now I think if you want to go quickly run off and get a cup of tea and things like that, we're going to do that, but we're going to quickly just do a poll, because then we've got our next session coming up. So we'll do the poll, and then I think we're going to do a quick, if you need to get off and get a cup of tea before our next panel session. So our poll 3 is thinking about challenges we've faced in the past few years, COVID, flood, cyclone impacts, moving into 2024. Is your not-for-profit able to manage its finances and operate, and for how long? Oh, there's some research on this, but great to have everyone with us today. So let's have a think. How financially viable is your not-for-profit that you can sustain your staff, you can sustain all your programs, all your initiatives, that kind of thing? So we've got 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years plus. This is going to give us some great insights and some stats that is really useful in helping tell and champion what our sector is needing and also what's kind of happening. Okay, we've got a few minutes and then we'll post the poll. We're ready to roll. I don't see anyone's run off to get a coffee, so it's all cool. We've got a great panel coming up shortly. So our results, let's have a look. 32% are at 12 months. Oh, yep. That just shows you how much of an impact things are having on our community. 32% probably only have next year. Then we're into 14%, 6 months. So that's a lot. 14% of us are saying that 3 years plus, 29%, that's pretty good going. So well done. And yeah, a lot not in too much of a good state there. So definitely some things and challenges happening about how we're going to sustain our organisations and what we can do to moving beyond 6 months, 12 months, that kind of thing. Thanks for filling that poll out. We're going to now move into our next session. Diversity, equity and inclusion. Just remember, you can ask our panel any questions, and then near the end I'll ask them. I'll sift through in the chat, and we'll pose them to our panelists. So yes, it's recorded today. We put it up on our website so everyone can have access to it. Rightio. So now we've got Susan, Brock and Michelle. They're going to come up on screen shortly. Hopefully we don't have any more internet or any other tech issues happening. Just waiting to see the panel. I'll just let my team know I can't see anyone. Here we go. I see one person. I see Brock.
I'm here, Susan.
Susan. Okay. Radio, we've got Michelle and Susan.
I'm just trying
Here we go. Yay, I can see you now. Great. Great.
Somebody just tell me how to put a blur on my background.
Go to the next to stop video, and there's a little arrow, and then it will come up, and you go video settings.
Hang on,
click on
I can't
that.
see it.
Look, it's got
settings.
Next to stop video, you can choose virtual background.
I've got to stop video.
You've got a lovely background though, Susan.
Oh, no, I'm used to Teams.
Our team might message you and try and help you. Okay, so our talk today is around diversity, equity, inclusion. We've got a fabulous, well-experienced chairs in the room with us now. We've got Brock, Michelle and Susan. So I don't know if you guys have been on the call since our first panel or a bit earlier, but I did ask our co-governance panel that we just had what was the best Christmas present that they ever got. So I'm going to ask you something very similar, but it's going to be worse, which is what was the worst Christmas present that you ever got? What was the thing that you got that you really didn't want?
Oh, gosh.
That also might be like not the best thing because your mum might be watching or something, Brock, and then you'll be like, oh.
Oh, am I first? Oh dear. I think it's just clothes that like don't fit. It's probably for me.
Yeah, I get that.
See, I'm going to break the rules and go with what the best one that I ever got, which was I have 3 sons in their 20s, and like most mothers, I used to drag them along to get the Santa photo, and they all went and got a Santa photo about 2 years ago and put it in a frame and sent it to me for Christmas, and it was like brilliant.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's really nice.
Should have seen their faces.
What about you, Michelle?
Yeah, I guess in the spirit of diversity, I don't really celebrate, my whānau don't really celebrate Christmas, nor are we really present-giving bunch. So, yeah, I think nothing comes to mind because nothing good nor bad has ever arrived during this period of time. So, yeah.
Fair enough. So thank you so much for being with us today. We're going to put your profiles up so everyone can check you out and connect with you, but you're awesome, wonderful organisations. So please, everyone online, please do check these, check our people out with us today. So I think the thing about diversity, inclusion, equity conversations is a lot around the value of it and how we kind of do this. But for today, do you think we can get into some actions that people can really take? Like, I'd be keen to see if people have got any questions that they'd like answered. How do we kind of create more open spaces on our boards? And if we also get some kickback from people about, no, why do we even need to do that? Like, what can we do?
I'll give it a go. I think the first thing is look in different places to where you would normally look for board members. So look for difference as opposed to the same, and so therefore different networks, the way you're even posting your advertisements if you're looking for new board members, all of those sorts of things. Look in surprising places and you'll find surprising people.
Sounds great. It's about thinking a bit differently, isn't it?
That's right.
From the status quo. So yeah, that sounds great. Brock, what do you think?
I think that sometimes you really just have to make room for that and just to be very committed to the idea, even if it means, you know, some people sort of have to step back or you have to create more space. I think people try to like think about it too much as opposed to just, I think what Jewelz said before, just sort of get on with it. You know, it can't always hurt, just take some steps and see where they lead.
Yeah, I think that does sound like it is. We can get a little bit not sure on what to do, so we might just do nothing. What's your thoughts, Michelle?
Yeah, I think just similar to what has been shared in the last sort of kōrero is around how I guess community boards should really be reflecting the diversity of the communities that they serve, and that's just, you know, sort of at its core. So if you're serving, you know, a very broad sort of range of, you know, people and communities, then that should be reflected in the level of, you know, decision making at that sort of level. So I guess just putting it very simply to its core is it's important to be reflective of the communities that you're serving.
Yeah, I think that is one of the most important things, isn't it? Is in our governing roles, our job is there to make sure that we do our best to help where we're going, identify areas that we need to move towards, so future thinking, but also making sure that we're representative of who we're serving. So are we actually moving forward and going where we need to go, and are we resourced to deliver that? So resourcing is not just sitting in the management team, it's sitting in our governing roles. Do we have the right skill set? Do we have the right experience? Do we have a makeup of experience that we need? That comes down to skills, experience that could be, I think in the government today, as the person said, she's now a minister and she came from social, you know, she came from a victim of violence and that kind of thing. So very, you know, it's amazing that your lived experience can be just as valuable, but how do we bring those, if you're an organization and you don't look quite diverse, how do we create space for people to come in that they want to join and want to stay? Susan, you got some thoughts on how we can do this?
I mean, I've dealt with various different boards, but, you know, one of the things that you can do is make a commitment as a leadership group to say, we're going to set a bit of a target around this. You know, targets equal action often. And so it might be that we will make deliberate steps that with the next elections, we will be seeking different capabilities, different lived experiences, people of different backgrounds, and deliberately bring them into the recruitment pool so we can actually have great conversations and select on that. So I think, look, that's one thing. Leadership commitment is everything. If you don't have a board that really buys into this, then it won't happen. So it's led from the top.
Yes. So that's where we can get into a little bit of challenges, is what happens if you've got a chair who doesn't want to make any changes, think that all fine. What do you think, Brock? Have you come across that?
Not really. Prior to, I guess, becoming chairperson, you know, at Inside Out, we had a very open-minded and accepting chair, and then stepping into it, I sort of tried to follow that lead, and just be open to those conversations. I think probably coming from, you know, one of those communities, the Rainbow community, I think you just recognise that need, and I guess that desire to represent yourself when it comes to, I guess, specific communities. It's that sort of nothing about us without us sort of mentality that I think a lot of our communities have. I know it's quite common in the Rainbow and disabled communities. But yeah, I guess if you come across a not so helpful chair, I think honestly just being very vocal about it. I think a lot of people are quite polite, to the point of not saying anything. And at least I think in my experience, having those sort of difficult conversations, they are sort of awkward in the moment, but a lot of times I think they do generate good results, particularly if I guess you know, work with also everyone else on the board as well, sort of getting that buy-in.
Yeah, that's good advice. And it often doesn't happen overnight, does it? So it's a bit of a process to get this change to happen. Michelle, what about, you think about the not-for-profit sector, how diverse do you think we are? Like, as in a community, this is a big question, right? But are we as diverse as we think, or representative? What would you think?
If that's a massive question. I guess, so can I actually just backtrack a little and my brain's a bit all over the place, and actually respond or follow up quickly to what Susan had actually shared, to your original, your earlier question around, I guess, how do we find sort of people to join, or from diverse communities which we haven't reached before, to join our boards if they're not, you know, if they look at the board and they're like, I don't know if I fit here, or I don't know if I want to stay here. And I think that stripping it back, it's just about building those authentic relationships with people from communities where you're trying to get them, or people, more representation onto your board. So I don't think it really works if you're just, you know, if you've never gone out and tried to build those relationships in the past, to expect people to, you know, show up, and or if they do show up, you know, for them to feel like they aren't made to sort of just fit into this, you know, mold that they observe from the outside. So actually, in order for them to feel that sense of belonging, you've really got to first start from the very fundamentals of building those core relationships with members of communities, with individuals, without any potentially intentions, just, you know, because you're valuing the relationship building in and of itself. And I think that in terms of whether our non-profit organisations are diverse, I think that there is a lot or more awareness around the need for non-profit and community organisations to be diverse, compared to, or perhaps more drive simply because we work more grassroots level than if you were to look at, you know, perhaps corporates or things like that. But that said, I don't really have the stats to back any of that up. This is just a personal sort of finger in the wind sort of feel. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I do think that we are actually changing. I think about when I first come into my first roles, probably 10 years ago or so. It's like, yeah, you would think it's very much what people would say. Not a lot of diversity, maybe not lots of representation from Māori, that kind of thing. So I think we are actually moving forward pretty quickly. And I think as a not-for-profit sector, I actually think we're moving swiftly, because we do recognise that the people that we're serving, so whether we're in health or environment, arts, sports, we have to be reflective as a whole organisation and the board. So yeah, I do think there has been a big change. It's just how do we look after people coming on to stay? So to stay in this space, so that we are recognising their viewpoints. that might be something that we could do a little bit better, because I think some of it might be, what if we're too scared to offend? So if we might say the wrong words or the wrong pronunciation, that kind of thing. How do we get over being a bit like that whakama, like being a bit embarrassed? You know, what is there any tips that you could give us around what we could do?
I can only speak from my experience, but as a board chair, one of the things I actively do is just really, you know, watch who's talking at the table, who might be sitting back, and ensure that every person has a voice. So I will deliberately go around the table and try to understand different points of view. And that's where the richness is. And then from that, what you find is other board members, like, you know, you really start to have a great conversation because you're actively drawing in different perspectives. And I think you have richer decision making because of it. I think it's also about, you know, setting some ways of working as a board. You know, how do we want to show up? How do we want to make sure that we've created a really safe environment for people to lean into? You know, a lot of people new to boards might feel really hesitant about speaking up, or hesitant that, you know, as you mentioned, they can't pronounce te reo as an example. But, you know, you've got to make it a safe place for experimentation sometimes as well. So it's about openness, it's about fairness, and I would say equity as well.
Is that what you've come across, Brock? Just is it easy for us to take offence, or is it just, you know, it's to make people at ease? What do you think we could do?
Yeah, I guess in my experience, when it comes to, I guess, people being worried about causing offence, I feel like that's almost a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, in the sense that you're always sort of looking for it, whereas the real idea behind it is, I guess, just being respectful of others and putting in that effort to just sort of genuinely understand and be able to communicate. I know I personally always try to, like, I guess, learn and be aware of things, just in my own capacity, whether it's like new terminology or pronunciation, just always sort of learning both on a personal level, but also sort of in the chair role, because I think there is an element of like leading by example and sort of setting the tone for everyone else. I think it's probably a bit, you know, understated how much people can sort of follow our lead in those regards. But yeah, I think that sort of that shame and that worry about causing offence is probably, to an extent, an imaginary hurdle. I think sometimes the solutions are quite easy, where it's just looking up stuff or asking people. I think there are a lot of good resources out there for like disabled community terminology, rainbow community terminology, pronunciation and stuff like that. And there are a lot of, I guess, organizations like Inside Out that sort of provide those. And so, yeah, I think it's just down to, you know, the effort and the willingness you have to sort of be better and to not, I guess, inadvertently exclude or make people feel unwelcome.
Yeah, like we were saying around the chair leading out on this, so setting the scene, setting the tone, something Michelle and Susan touch on too, is it's around respect and integrity. Those are some of the traits that we don't invest in and don't critique ourselves as much as we should. So yes, you might have experience as a governor. Yes, you might have come from corporate background or something like that, but you might not be actually have a lot of integrity, a lot of mana. So, you know, you don't want people like that. We have to lead by example and say we can do better, want better, and to make change happen in a positive light, we've got to have good people around the table. So, yeah, it's a very important, this diversity. But I would encourage everyone actually to have a look at the organisations that you all represent, because you've got fabulous, amazing resources yourselves. You both, all your organisations committed to driving this and making sure it's top of mind. So Susan, can you share a bit about some of the resources that you've got and some of the proactive workshops, those kind of things that you run?
In terms of diversity, equity and inclusion, or from a governance perspective?
Yeah. Well, yes.
Well, obviously I'm chair of Diversity Works New Zealand, which is the old Equal Employment Opportunities Trust. And our mantra is, or mission I should say, is for workplaces in Aotearoa to do diversity, equity, inclusion well and do well by it. Now, we have a member site and we've got so many resources up on that website that can help anybody in any organisation who are very interested in diversity, equity, inclusion to, help build strategy, build frameworks, training courses. Things like unconscious bias are a really big area to focus on, particularly if you're bringing different diversity to your organisation or to your board table. So, I would encourage you to go and have a look at that website. And there's other really great resources out there as well. I've got to say, Dr. Google's pretty helpful on some of this. And other organisations are really happy to share through experiences as well. It's one of those things that people are very interested in connecting on.
Yeah, it's so helpful, isn't it? That's the whole thing, is reach out, ask questions, connect with others. Michelle, you've also, with your organisation, you've got great, you do speaker series memberships supporting diverse future leaders. Did you want to do a bit of a shout out about what you do? People might want to connect.
Yeah, of course. So I guess our kaupapa is around building our country's pipeline of ethnically diverse future leaders across government, community, and business sectors, and that's a very sort of big, ambitious sort of goal. And within that, we've got sort of key fundamental areas around social cohesion as also a major element, race relations as a big focus, and ensuring that all of the leaders we're trying to grow are, inclusive, that they I guess building some of those core skills and values that we as an organisation sort of hold around manaakitanga, kotahitanga, whanaungatanga into our sort of future leaders, and that's sort of what we do at Multi-Ethnic Young Leaders. And
well, it's great, and you're working hard and doing lots of great things. So anyone interested can check out. We'll pop them up in the chat, I think. So Brock, and just inside out, I thought I saw something on the news recently. One of you was speaking about it, but you've got programs for schools and in workplaces.
So a lot of our work is sort of school and education based. There's a lot of resources there for schools. But we also sort of have some general resources around terminology, other topics like pronouns just sort of freely available, and we do offer sort of workplace services, sort of building rainbow inclusion there. So a lot of those are paid services, but we also deliver some to mental health and addictions workforce sort of providers, and that's sort of, I think, for free. I think it depends on the criteria, but yeah.
I'll just do a shout out to Diversity Works has a conference in February. It's a couple of days conference we held in Wellington on diversity, equity, inclusion. And so we're bringing the best of speakers and resources and everything to that. So if anybody's interested, go up and have a look at our website, and I encourage you to come along. It's a great conference.
Yeah, that's great, Susan. We'll share it in our pānui too, out to everyone, so that people can get involved. So thank you so much for sharing all your insights and your thoughts. Can be a bit of a tricky one, but I do think that as a sector, we are committed and we are making changes. You can see that in our approach to co-governance and different models of leadership. So, but it does, again, comes down to kind of how we treat one another and people and respect. So that is probably top of mind, isn't it? So I just want to do a big thank you so much to all three of you for your time today. And again, the video does go up post-event, so we'll be sharing it out with our community. Right, we're going to go to one of our, almost got 2 polls to go, I think. So before we go into our last panel session, which is Rangatahi governance, we're going to do a quick poll. Okay, poll number 4. Which of the following actions will your not-for-profit be taking in 2024 to ease funding challenges? Okay, we've got staffing cuts, amalgamating with another organisation, reducing operations, stopping programs. Youch, we will be looking into all of the above, nothing, continue status quo, unsure. So from our earlier poll about the challenges and actually around sustainability, there was at least maybe 45%, I think, that might not have enough money to post 6 months, 12 months. So if that's the case, what are you proactively doing? One, it might be, there's a bit of reductions in there, but it could also be chasing other avenues, isn't it? So staffing cuts, amalgamation, reducing ops, stopping programs, looking into all of them or some of them, and nothing, continuous status quo. Cross our fingers, hopefully we're not going to do. Okay. Observe in mind, if you need to get up and go get a cup of tea, go do that, because we're going to be back right on around 2. So please, yes, we're on to our last talk session this afternoon. Thank you again for being with us. Some of the results that have come in now, let's have a look. Nothing. 41% are just going to not do anything. 23% of us looking at all the above options, and 11% reducing operations. So a bit of a mix, but a little bit of nothing continues. So that's it might be a little bit alarming, considering most of us just said that we don't have a lot of money in the bank for a year or so. Good to hear from you though about what you're thinking about doing, or you might explore one or more of those. So thank you completing that. Okay. Righty ho. See who we've got up now. We have Martha, Lauren, and Devanga. So we have, lucky for all of us, wahine panel. So it just happened like that. We actually had Hiha-Agnew, but unfortunately couldn't attend with us today. But fabulous panel, I must say. So lovely to have you all with us. If you've been with us a bit earlier, Martha, Devanga, and Lauren, you can see I was asking some things about Christmas presents, and then I thought, how about where's your favourite holiday spot? Where do you go over summer holidays? So should we start with you, Lauren? Where's your favourite place?
Kia ora koutou. Thanks for hosting this fabulous panel today. I'm really excited to hear from everyone and share my bit. So I whakapapa to South Africa. So I think a really special holiday moment for me around Christmas is always being able to go back home and see my family there. But in lieu of that, I was born and raised in beautiful Wellington. So it's pretty nice to be here when everyone heads off to Batches for the holiday. Wellington's quite a special place. So 2 answers, if that's a bit cheeky.
Oh, that sounds fortunate, I think. Devanga, where do you like to head off to if you're lucky, get a summer break?
Kia ora koutou, I'm Devanga. Great to be here. Good afternoon. It'll probably be Hawke's Bay. I love the heat, taking the heat. It's great.
Definitely got some heat there. So yeah, wonderful place. Martha? Tēnā koe, Martha?
Tala whakautou. Tēnā koe, tēnā koutou katoa. My favorite place would be back home in Tuvalu. Are we doing introductions, or we just?
We do a really short one because
Okay.
Something that when we first polled our community, we don't like to spend too long on the intros. So we like to kind of get into it and ask you some hard questions. We've also got your profiles up so people can connect with you. And again, you guys are you're all chairs, all from cool organisations. So please check these wonderful women out online, see what they do. You can keep yourselves off mute. It's fine. We're going to just have a bit of a chat, but I've got a couple of questions. So this is around rangatahi and on boards, youth on boards. Community governance, we've actually done quite a bit in this space. I've spoken at Social Change with Lauren and Brock, and we've done a bit in rangatahi and seeing what is of interest, and I've done quite a bit of kind of keynote speaking too in the space. I always think that young people seem pretty smart and I actually think you're probably going to supersede us. You seem very onto it, is my kind of thoughts. But I kind of want to start with, like, what type of governance do you think our young people first are introduced to? Like, where do they come into knowing about governance? Or what is governance? Is it marae, councils, school, communities, youth groups, that kind of thing? Where do you think, or where did you guys first pick up governance? Lauren, do you want to share first?
Of course, thank you. Yeah, I've been thinking about this a little bit, because I think part of my own journey into governance was really about, I guess it was really coloured by a lot of misconceptions around what governance was. Frankly, when you break governance down, it's really just about how an entity is run and kind of who's making the decisions and who's setting the strategy, you know, working on the organization rather than working in the organization. So I think on reflection, you know, things like engaging with local government and your elected council when you're at school, engaging with your school board, thinking about the organizations that you might be involved in and how those are run. There's quite a lot of governance happening around us that may not be, you know, touted as kind of Institute of Directors branded career directors. There's such a spectrum of governance that exists. So I think what's important for me is breaking down some of those misconceptions around what governance is, and then it's really all around you, and that's wonderful and should be celebrated.
Yes, and that's part of why we're running these events, is to celebrate our good governance, our not-for-profit community. So, and all the work we do, and all the different aspects of governance and how we operate. Devanga, how did you kind of come into governance, or is it through family, or where did you kind of first start out?
So for me, I didn't know governance was a thing until I started early in my career in the public sector. We obviously have public sector boards, and that's where I understood governance as really a thing that people can do, something that could actually be a job. I think a key question for me really is around, when we talk about rangatahi on boards, we talk about this concept of governance. It may be really hard for young people to actually know what that is and see that in application and see how they may be involved. So I think there is a natural silo there around being able to engage with governance, apart from maybe if you're really familiar with things like your youth council, or you're involved in your youth councils or in your school board of trustees sort of space there. But for me, I learned about boards through studying in the public sector and understanding how public sector entities and organisations are run. And then from there, I realised, hey, this is how community organisations are run in a different way, through community governance and, you know, different value systems and sometimes different ways of working. But I think in my own experience, I didn't know it was a thing until I started working after university.
Yeah, I think this is what I'd really like to explore a bit more. So Martha, how did you come into governance?
Yeah.
Where was your first point of call?
Just touching on a bit about what Lauren said, the misconception about it. I grew up around it, but I didn't know it was governance. And so that was through our community, our local community here in Wellington, also at school. Obviously, always heard about the Board of Trustees. But yeah, mainly those two, and in churches. So obviously there's always a governing body that make the final decisions for the rest of the community on decisions that affect them. And it wasn't until my early career in public sector where my team was the secretariat for 2 governing bodies that ultimately made the decisions, and we were supporting the working group. So that's when I really went into diving into what that was. And then that's how I started exploring more on my own, connecting with people. But yeah, I think growing up, it was definitely part of our identity, especially with the wayfinding, navigating, future focus. So yeah, it wasn't until I guess in the last couple of years I really delved into what that truly meant, what governance is.
This is a bit about what kind of Mele started the keynote speaker session, wasn't it? Around there is a system in place already that you fall into, and how you kind of operate, and it's something that's not spoken, but it is there. So okay, so some of it about, we often do hear around coming into councils, they might have council groups, that kind of thing, or school committees. We often do get asked around, do we have civic, people talk about civic service in schools and things like that. Is there programs around sharing the value of why governance is so important, how we can do that? Have you come across something? Do you think that there's a real need for this, for younger people to really get an understanding around the value of the application of governance and what they can do? Because it can set you up for such a fantastic career, but some of us don't come to it till quite late because we're not really exposed to it. Do you think there's a place here for this?
I'll go, yeah, for sure. Like I said earlier, that future focus, and it's not a benefit for your career, but also in the way you go about life, and personal, professional, whatever it is, it ultimately contributes to the benefit of all, especially if you want to drive a kaupapa, and you want to make change within your own community, government, wherever. I think it's a valuable area for young people to really dive into it and what that means. But yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I guess it's like how we, we like to ask young people to vote, to get involved, to, be a part of decisions that will impact them, whether that's tomorrow or in a few years. So I kind of see governance should be recognised that same way. These could be national decisions or decisions in your local community, and you are entitled to, be a part of that process and to share your expertise. So I would think I would like to see more similarities there being found in that same way that we do like to encourage young people to vote and be involved in discourse and decisions that will affect them and their whānau.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I love that. Really makes sense, because championing vote is decision-making, government governance, to management, and the influence you can have. So yeah, that's a great fit. Lauren, I'd be thinking you might be thinking the same.
Yeah, definitely tautoko, all of that. And I think the why you deserve to, that young people deserve to have a seat at the table is absolutely critical. I think that was something, we all kind of can hold ourselves back, and it's incredibly daunting to look at a room full of people who don't sound like you, don't look like you, and have very different life experience to you. But that is exactly why young people need to be at the table. That is why we need to kind of, be bringing those different perspectives and being more representative also of the community that these organisations are serving. At the Social Change Collective, we do a bit of kind of trying to win hearts and minds by talking about why diversity at the decision-making table, and particularly youth perspectives, matter, because we live in a country where millennials and Gen Zs make up over half of the working population, but the average age of directors on NZX listed companies is 60 and trending up. And that's cooked, frankly. When you have people, who kind of have very, when there isn't a lot of diversity and lived experiences and perspectives around the table, you get you get a particular type of decision making. And particularly in community organisations, I think that really needs to be shaken up. You want to be more representative of the people that you're serving, in terms of being able to really honour the kaupapa. And there are so many social, economic, and environmental benefits to that, as well as kind of the own personal and professional development that you as an individual can get by being in those rooms and at the table.
Yeah, and Roger's shared with us that there's one example of a YES program in schools where participants become directors of their companies. So yeah, that's really cool. It's a bit of, seeing how it kind of works in action. So they've kind of touched on that, like getting youth at the table, but making sure that you have the confidence, ability to own your space, so you're not just considered youth. And we've covered this before actually on our youth on board talk through community governance. But where do you think, when we think about big topics and challenges facing us and in our sectors, and that's what really today's been a bit about as well, what do you think the biggest topics are that youth are really wanting to champion in the space? Like we talk about climate change and equality, but how can youth make change as a collective? Is there a group out there that pushing change? Are you well connected? So I've got two questions in here for you. One is around, where do you think youth are most engaged in? And then we'll come back to like, how do you kind of connect in the space together? Who wants to take the first question? What's the biggest one? Must be something on your boards that you're championing at the moment, involved in.
Yeah, I think maybe a general theme is everyone is acutely aware of just how quickly problems around social well-being and equity and the well-being of our communities and intergenerational outcomes, like I think as a broader theme, climate justice and things come into that as well. But I think that general area young people are very passionate about. And there's probably not an organisation that does all of those things. But I think if young people got involved in governance, it's about future-proofing decisions around systems, services, things that are rolled out in the community, making resilient decisions, having decision advantage when the people around the table are actually thinking of what to do next. So I think that's kind of how I'm seeing it as a broader level, and there's plenty of organisations that do parts of that you could get involved with and make some lasting change and just some really resilient decision making with young people around the table.
Yeah, that's great. That's what I'm hearing is it's not so much the topic, but it's like getting involved and influencing, and this is a way to do it. So we've got to learn these skill sets quite early. Decision making, like you said, Devanga, voting, these are long-lasting decisions that make a big impact. So yeah, that's great. So Martha, intergenerational governance, and what would you, another question I do have is like, who's been your own mentors that you've had to reach out to, considering yourself young people? Like, who do you go to ask, like, I need a hand, got some tricky stuff happening?
I definitely have a circle of advisors, mentors that I go to, those that are experienced, have different types of skills, knowledge, wisdom, and that comes from family, community leaders, within government, even people that I can relate to and that have gone through similar experiences. But yeah, I would say I've always had someone or a mentor, advisor, one area of my life. Yeah, and I would go to any of them, pull from them. Yeah, and they're always willing to, always open to giving advice as well. So been blessed with all the people that I've met on the way, and that support me.
And you're one of our Tuakana Taina chair recipients, so through community governance, and so is Devanga. So again, it's like the fact that you step up and you say, look, I want to get the best advice, best guidance, that's real testimony. So always continuous learning, doesn't matter what age you are, got to do it, right? Okay, so we've got a few minutes because we're going to wrap right on 2:30. So I was thinking, what about, how do we encourage youth? We've got all these different youth groups, got Social Change Collective, got other organisations have youth reps, advisory youth reps. got all this kind of, what is there a space here to bring you together so that you can work on decision making, connect with one another? Yeah, I really see that there's a strong value in doing that from regional, national, because you're all representing different kaupapa, but it's a chance to connect together on governance. Yeah. Anyone keen? Should we do this next year?
Yeah, should definitely do it. I think for me in my own community, it's the education piece. So like I said, I didn't even know what governance was. I mean, I've been around it, you know, growing up, but didn't know it as governance. And so I think the key piece is education, and through those organizations that, you know, help our rangatahi, our youth. Yeah, just someone that they trust, that they can look up to as well, to break that down in. And that may be me, and for example, or someone that's connected to community governance. And yeah, and hopefully next year, if you stand something up, we can just make those connections. But it's those relationships that they really buy in, and understand the value in it.
Yeah, and I think as you're young people, like you're moving, your governance career can lead you into so many different aspects of your working career, and it can really grow your own professional career. But when you join a board, and that's the neat thing, all of us who are here online today, you really grow a network of boards, trustees around the table. These are often connected people. They've got connections in funding or community or whatever. You can really grow your network, and that's really important because it's networking, connections, it's who you know, and they can help you along the way. So yeah, it is, so much of today has been around connections and relationships. It's been so important. Okay, we've got a couple of minutes. Is there any last kind of thoughts that you'd like to share? Anything about kaupapa that you run, or that you'd like to share in particular around rangatahi on boards?
This generation is fierce, bold, and they're coming. But also, yeah, just being willing to lend a hand and be an older sibling to those that are coming through. Yeah, and pass it on, pay it forward. So
I like that, pass it on. Kia ora.
Also for young people, the value of governance, you know, not just giving back to your community, organisation, and, you know, whatever kaupapa you're involved with, but I personally have found it to really help accelerate my career and to be in places where I do get to have, you know, leadership roles and decision making, because again, it's just like flexing those muscles in a different arena. And then I have found that, you know, those skills are transferable into your day job, and it does give you the confidence, you know, around decision making, communication, consensus building. Like, these things are not just for the board table, but they are also for basically everything else you might need in your professional life. So I think it is good, a really good supplementary exercise to your career as well. If you're not yet at the stage where you're sitting on 8 boards for the rest of your life and that's your job. So I think there is also value in packaging that story up that way as well, because it just does give you confidence. It's not easy for young people to have the opportunity to lead all the time. So, but how do you get good at it if you're not given the opportunity to practice? And also, how do you do that when there's this whole concept of you can't be what you can't see? But unfortunately, a lot of us have to be. So I think it's, you know, being able to flex those muscles and develop those skills, and it flows right across all the roles that you're in, for your own benefit and also for the benefit of the kaupapa and roles that you're contributing to.
Yeah, it's totally true, isn't it? It's like the amount of skills it gives you in your governing roles is huge. Working with people, decision making, agreeing, not agreeing, difficulties, the whole thing, managing money, assets, like, it's huge. It's a massive skill set. So I like that too. I mean, yeah, if we get the chance to got young people on the board, why not get them to chair a meeting? Like, it's practice. Most of us know our governing roles, most of it is actually done on the job. So then we have to grow our other capability skills. So, and Lauren?
Oh, yeah, couple of points that I wanted to drive home. I think my reflections on governance and some of the real insights and nuggets of gold that I've picked up from people who I've been lucky to learn from and hear from. And I think a lot of this actually really comes from Te Puahu Katine, who spoke at one of the Social Change Collective governance events this year. And I'll do a quick plug for SCC later, but basically we want to get more young people on boards, and we provide free and accessible workshops to upskill young people in governance. And we also help to build that network of community around young people working towards being in governance roles. And we also help to broker relationships with organizations. So definitely check us out if you're keen to dip your hand in and be connected to resources, etc. But putting that to one side, I think kind of 3 points that I'd really want to drive home to people is remembering that governance is an opportunity to serve, and it's really important to be connected to your why, and particularly in community governance, to really be driven by your purpose and your mission, and to stay grounded to that and keep coming back to that, to feel like you're really connected to what's driving you. I think the second point, this has been talked about already, is to keep learning. So remember the human aspects of what you're doing and the ramifications for your decision making. Know that you deserve there, but also deserve to be there, but that you need to keep learning and keep challenging and keep growing in order to be the most effective director that you can be around that table. And remembering, who gave you the mandate to be there, whose voice are you responsible for representing, and how you're serving them. And then my last point, I think, for young people in particular, understand and know your value add and your superpower. Particularly, you're not entrenched in your thinking. You bring different perspectives, and you can and should ask courageous questions. So really know that you have something to bring, even if you haven't got 20 years of working as a full-time director. Like, you still deserve a seat at that table. So yeah, go get it. Miss 100% of the shots you can't take. So put yourself out there.
Well, I think that it's exactly what Martha said, that you guys are just fierce. So I better watch out, because you guys are definitely coming. No, it's so great, and it's definitely what we've learned today is around the ethics, and it's around integrity and holding to account. And the good thing is that if we teach that, then that is the key to not leading with ego. There's some comments in the chat. So yeah, and that's definitely what I see from young people. They definitely want to hold people to account and create that space. I've also attended those social good and spoken at those. Your governance, they're fantastic. So keep going. We'll connect with you again, Lauren. Okay, we've got our final poll. So thank you everyone for completing these polls. I think they've been very insightful. I'm going to thank our panel. Thank you so much. Do check the organisations out that they represent. Thank you, Martha, Devanga and Lauren. So we are down to our final couple of minutes. I just do want to say thank you so much for staying online with us. We do share this out. We'll share it out our Pānui. You can access it on our website. Righty ho, thank you so much. Thank you for the lovely comments. The team and I really do appreciate it, and I'm going to do a big shout out to April and Joe. If they're there, they can do a big wave for all your hard work this year. Fantastic team. And thank you to Rachel McDonald from Trust Management. Thank you to everyone that supported us. We are here to help you. So we're here to help you so you can help others. That's how it works. And heaps of fabulous feedback today. Pass it forward. Lots around relationships. So many great conversations. Thanks, Kay. Thanks for great panels. Hopefully you like this format. I think April's going to chuck us up our last poll. Let us know if you do like the format, if you like the content. We'll be chucking out a survey soon. Okay, last poll. How can we continue to strengthen our community sector? What would you most like Community Governance Aotearoa to focus on in 2024? This time you get to choose multi-choice, so there's quite a few there. We have increased our online events, expand our program offerings, offer more governance training workshops, run an in-person not-for-profit annual event. That sounds pretty cool. add more regional in-person events, and set up community hubs to connect with others. So you can click a few of these. This one. Again, thank you so much for being with us. We'll put the results up very shortly, because then I'm going to ask Matua Kevin to close our event. Thank you if you attended our first one and our second. Thank you so much for supporting us, and stay safe over the summer holidays. April, if we can do the poll, and then we are on time. Look at that. Okay, increase our online events. Well, that's cool. Offer more governance training workshop. Yes, definitely. More community hubs. Yes, we're really keen to do this. So we'd love to create a space that people can come in and connect, just as we did today in our whakamutunga as well. More governance. Yes, and community governance, we do offer most, if not all, of our events at low or no cost, but we will do our best to keep it low and affordable. Thank you to everyone that's been with us today, all of our speakers, our panelists, our keynote speaker, Mele Wendt, everyone behind Community Governance Aotearoa. Thank you so much. And to my team, thank you. And over to Matua Kevin.
Kia ora, Rose. Kia ora, Rose. I tautoko ngā mihi, kua mihia, to all our panelists, to all our guests, and to all the people who have joined us today, whether you're from overseas, and I noticed some in Australia or in Samoa, or all around the island, ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. So I'm just going to close our hui today, but, in saying that, I thank you once again for attending. And thank you, Rose, for taking us through our wonderful session. Nō reira, tēnā tātou, unuhia, unuhia, unuhia ki tūru tapu nui, kia wātea, kia māma, te ngākau, te tinana, te wairui te ara tangata, koiara e rongo, whakairi ake ki runga ki ao tīna. Hui e, tae ki e. Kia ora tātou.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.